It's been reported now that Karoline Leavitt was shaken by what she saw Donald Trump do with Putin. And Marco Rubio is doing cleanup duty on NBC, and he got his ass handed to him by a reporter. And now we're getting reporting, too, that, and you're probably not going to be surprised to hear this, the Trump administration left behind classified documents about the meeting. Let's go to those documents first. Government papers found in Alaskan hotel revealed new details of Trump-Putin meeting. I have those pages, and I have some reporting on it here. Papers within the U.S. Department markings found Friday morning in the business center of an Alaskan hotel revealed previously undisclosed and potentially sensitive details about the August 15th meetings between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Anchorage. There's 8 pages here. Here they are. I'm going to give you some details about what they are, but this is highly classified information that we're seeing here. They actually had to black some stuff out because they left numbers of Trump administration officials on these papers. And as you can see here, there's a seating chart as well on the dinner or the luncheon that never happened. It was supposed to happen. Here's more on that now. The first page in the printed document disclosed a sequence of meetings for August 15th, including the specific names of the rooms inside the base in Anchorage where they would take place. It is also revealed that Trump intended to give Putin a ceremonial present. POTUS to President Putin, the document states, American bald eagle desk statue. Pages 2 through 5 of the documents listed the names and phone numbers of 3 U.S. staff members, as well as the names of 13 U.S. and Russian state leaders. The list provided phonetic pronouncers for all the Russian men expected at the summit, including Mr. President Putin. So they had to spell out Putin's name because Donald Trump wouldn't know how to pronounce it otherwise. Pages 6 and 7 in the packet described how lunch at the summit would be served and for whom. A menu included in the documents indicated that the luncheon was to be held in honor of His Excellency Vladimir Putin. And when asked about this, the White House said that these pages were inconsequential, they were no big deal, but as someone has said here, it strikes me as further evidence of the sloppiness and incompetence of the administration, said Michaels. You just don't leave things in printers. It's that simple. Yeah, but are we surprised that the Trump administration, the administration that brought you Signalgate, is leaving around papers like this? And secondly, and I'm going to show you in this next clip, where they're trying to play this off like it went just as planned, as just as it was supposed to. That's not the case. This was a disaster for the Trump administration. And now we're seeing specific evidence of that because they had a lunch planned that never happened because this was supposed to be the end of it. And Donald Trump got rolled over and played by Putin. And here is some reporting that says that Karoline Leavitt looked ashen after the Putin meeting.
Can I ask you very quickly before we have to go to break? A lot of the press corps that was there, they reported in the minutes and hours after the presser that they saw members of the administration like Karoline Leavitt look ashen,
yes,
almost frightened after what they had seen behind closed doors. What did that indicate to you?
Well, first, we should all be glad that we did not go to Alaska because I was in Helsinki with you and I was in Geneva when President Biden met. They traveled a long ways for nothing in return, those journalists, right? But that suggests to me that this was a bigger disaster than they're leading on. To your point, they're trying to spin it, although they're not even trying to spin it. That's a really interesting thing. When I worked at the White House and we would have meetings like this, I was the SAO, the senior administration official that would call up journalists, that would call the New York Times to say, this is what was discussed, to push it this way. They're not even attempting to do that because they know they don't have anything to work with.
Later on in that discussion, that host, Atonia Hilton, said that Karoline Leavitt looked, quote, frightened by what she had witnessed between President Putin and President Donald Trump. So I got to wonder what Trump and Putin talked about that made them seem so frightened and shocked. And we're kind of seeing that trickle out now where Donald Trump was really toting the European line about Ukraine couldn't give away anything without concessions from Russia. And then within 3 hours of meeting, first off, there is no decision made at all. There is no deal. Trump got totally rolled over. But then following that meeting, Donald Trump was speaking Russian talking points. So something happened in that meeting. And I hope we can find out what it is. And we also know that that was not what they were expecting, because Donald Trump is a liar, but he's also very easy to read. And sometimes he just tells you exactly what he's feeling. And here's what he told Hannity.
But I think that today's meeting went really well. And I think we maybe will have a good result. But I just don't like to talk about it. That's why I agreed to do your interview. And I said, you know what, I'll do it, Sean. But that was like 2 days ago. I had no idea that. I said, Sean, are you going to ask me about what we
basically
just
say on national TV, I regret saying yes to doing this.
Yeah,
interview.
I shouldn't have done it, but that's okay.
You don't have to.
By the way, I have to say to the audience, this guy's a fantastic person. He's a great patriot.
I mean, if Donald Trump's calling you fantastic, that's like a reverse compliment. Anyways, but yeah, so he did say here that he wished he didn't do the interview because he has nothing to talk about. Nothing happened. He was totally rolled over by Putin. And that is also what we're seeing here with Marco Rubio, who's doing interviews all this morning. And when asked about what he thinks about the Ukraine-Russian war today, here's what he was presented with, which is a clip of the complete opposite of what he said in 2022. It's brilliant.
Perry, I want to play something you said about President Putin. This was right after the invasion in March of 2022. Take a look.
This guy lies, habitually lies. He's never kept a deal they've ever signed, and he lies all the time. And I don't know why, but he plays us like a violin in the West, because the West wants to believe that you can cut a deal with everybody. You can't cut a deal with guys like this. He's a professional, experienced liar.
Mr. Secretary, given that, what makes you think that if you are able to reach a deal with President Putin, that he would stick to it, based on, as you just said, he's a liar?
Well, that's the point. That's why the deal has to have enforceable mechanisms in it. That's why the deal has to have things like security guarantees. That's the point I was making a few minutes ago when you were asking me about looking someone in the eye. What's important here is actions, not words, not paper, document. Those are all important. Those are elements of a deal, but they have to be enforceable. They have to be verifiable. They have to be enduring. There's no point here in signing a deal that's going to be violated in 3 or 4 months. There's no point in doing that. It actually would make things worse. So that's why this is such a difficult thing. Not only do you need a deal, you need a deal that's verifiable, that's enforceable, and that's
blah, 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 blah. Well, does anyone believe that Donald Trump is going to sign a deal that he plans on enforcing? He can't even keep tariffs on China. And there were supposed to be consequences for there being no ceasefire from Russia. Remember that? And there's no ceasefire. Where are the consequences? I think in order for something to be enforceable, you have to have someone willing to enforce it. And from what we've seen of Donald Trump, for whatever reason, he does not feel that he either wants to or can enforce any sort of action against anyone that's a perceived enemy. And he was also asked this about concessions Putin has made.
Can you name any concessions that Vladimir Putin made during this meeting? Have any
I wouldn't name him on your program.
Have any concessions
I wouldn't name him on your program. Why would I do that?
Where is the pressure?
Well, of course, because you can't have a peace agreement. No, you can't have a peace agreement unless both sides give and get. You can't have a peace agreement unless both sides make concessions. That's a fact. That's true in virtually any negotiation. If not, it's just called surrender. And neither side is going to surrender. So both sides are going to have to make concessions. So, of course, concessions were asked.
Aren't they very, very much so public about what they expect Ukraine to do? Where's the secrecy around Ukraine? I truly think what we've experienced now is like a complete shift in the global order. America, I mean, it's always been the case that we felt this way, but I think it's actually true now. America is no longer allied with the West. We're allied with dictatorships and authoritarian regimes. My only hope is that European countries can figure out a way to manipulate Trump long enough so that they can get what they need from him, and that either he gets too old, gets too sick, gets too incoherent, that he no longer can maintain power, and that we can build something anew. But this is a regime, and they're not even good, leaving documents around. Well, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please hit like in the video. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Bye.